Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending your valuable time with the Adapt 2030 channel. Starting off a device here, 1896, pulling from the ether, creating what you see in front of you. Rail bills, river shipping, and truck fuel surcharges swelling to all-time highs. Removing CO2 from the atmosphere, I'll call that terraforming. Insurance for vessels leaving Ukraine now has minimum requirement insurance, $50 million per cargo. Brazil down almost 9% on the exports first half for soybeans. Argentina, the government's actually offering black market rates to the farmers to come to market with their grain supply. The countries with the highest default risk 2022, 7 and 8, Ukraine and Argentina. We're pinning that on the hopes to alleviate shortages across the planet for the grains. Easy equation to start you with here. The more those things that you eat on top, the corn and the soy, the more that costs, the more that paper you have to pay to get this same exact item. Gold and silver would be the same if this is bars of gold, bars of silver. You need to pay more paper to get the same exact thing. It's just this, corn and soy, you need more paper to get it now. So let's start off in Argentina with a mind bender here. Central banks creating something called the agro-dollar. And it's based on black market rates of all things. So the new scheme's available until August 31st. It still runs through the central bank, but instead of giving you the pitiful 129 rate, they're actually offering 239. And you think, wow, farmers are going to kick it. Oh, wait a minute. The black market rate on the street is above 300. So even with the government offering 239, that is still substantially less than you can walk out on the street and get. So the buying and selling of the physical dollar, this is the definition of a blue dollar. I was unaware myself. The physical dollar in a cueva or on the street will fetch you at this time $337. Government rate in this new scheme to pay farmers way more, $239. I'm a fan of gold, 1830, sun on the front. Argentinian peso, bringing you back to the past, solid money. Now, according to the central bank, implementing this scheme will allow producers to make a demand deposit in financial entities, banks, with a daily variable remuneration, meaning how much your exchange rate will be and how much they'll deposit for you, depending on the evolution of the exchange rate known as dollar link, up to 70% of the value of the sale of the grains. Steve Forbes warns a big financial crisis incoming. Meanwhile, the Fed raised rates again with the single biggest rate hike in 4 decades. Economists are forecasting that the Fed will panic and pivot, and they're going to start cutting rates again in 2023. Gold's going to soar. That's why Wells Fargo, Bloomberg, Goldman Sachs all forecast gold well above $2,000 an ounce. Ask yourself, do you really think big government's going to stop spending and the Fed's going to stop printing money? Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention the Adapt 2030 channel when you call. They're going to give you some great service. Patriot Gold Group has a no fee for life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver, and you may qualify for the no fee for life IRA. On qualifying rollovers, give them a call, 888-546-7020 to get your free investor guide today. And with the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated IRA gold dealer for 6 years in a row, it'd be good to talk to them. 888-546-7020. And now on with the video. But see, you're not going to get 100% of that. They're going to split the hair, and then they're going to say, well, you know, there's the other 30%, there's a different rate on that. Let's explain it, break it down. For the remaining 30%, the formation of foreign assets will be allowed. You're going to get the value of the official dollar plus this extra rate plus the export tax is going to bring you that magical 239, which is still below the street rate. So only 30% of what they sell is going to get this official brand new come to market rate. The rest of it's going to get stuck at the official bank rate. Oh, by the way, in Argentina right now, hectic July. Inflation, the first 7 months of 2022, 46.2%. But back when it was running as what is quote unquote hyperinflation in 1989, it was running at 71%. So this year's end rate is going to end somewhere around 90%. Which begs the question, if you were a farmer, would you just wait another month or two and at a 10% monthly increase in inflation, you hold on to your grains for 2 months and you just gained 20%? And then using this bank scheme where 70% of the funds are going to come under a subpar exchange rate, would you export it? Would you sell into the market, or would you wait and exchange pesos for those waiting on the border with Brazil who are going to give you solid money and sell off book like that? That's what they're trying to prevent, is all this off book grain heading out overland or down the rivers through Brazil where the traders are waiting there. So they want to get their export revenues. Things are crashing. So when we're looking at Southern Hemisphere as some of this savior to alleviate shortages, not only are they getting the volcanic ash from the Tonga eruption, which will dent further into the yields, but now the whole money woes. So looking for the Southern Hemisphere to offset all these shortages, the Northern Hemisphere is kind of a moot point. You're just wasting your time. Now, it's just going to be a matter of time before those two data sets overlap and you get the aha moment, and then you're going to get the run into the super inflation, doubling, tripling prices here. And that's when it'll all start to coalesce and manifest into what myself and many others have been talking about, what will happen at the end of the year with pricing. Once you see these several factors sync up, the dial on the combination safe unlocks itself, and out comes Pandora's box. Welcome to 2023. And I had to pull this one out. I'd done this story a month and a half ago on a forecast talking about successive, if they went into a third La Nina, Argentinian production would be crushed yet again, especially coming into this time right now with ashfall, absurd weather patterns, out of the norm rains and snows, and Argentina was supposed to capitalize on the interruption from the Black Sea. That's not happening. And they are into a successive third La Nina, which will break next year around April of 2023. So it's going to continue with the pattern of dry conditions and reduced crop yield. Looking over into Ukraine, the insurance is the big thing. Now these vessels are running, they're small. They're like 25,000 tons because they need to go through these areas with underwater mines in them. Now they've cleaned a couple channels out already, but what we consider massive ocean-going breakbark kind, that is not an option at the moment coming out of Ukraine. In the past it was. Currently, the conditions are a little different, but also Lloyd's of London is now dictating and mandating that every single ship running that route needs to have a minimum 50 million USD per cargo shipment insured before they'll leave. And I knew this was going to be a thing. A lot of people have talked about this. The insurance is going to offset any kind of gains that would be taken out of that, because this is going to be another cost. Brazil soybeans are down almost 9% for the exports 2022. Corn's following that as well. So when you're looking at these countries with a high default risk in 2022, Argentina number 7, Ukraine number 8. And we're pinning our hopes on these countries to alleviate grain shortages in the Northern Hemisphere. Now don't worry, I know you wanted to see the rest of the chart here, so let's go down through some grain producers in the top 25. So we got 7 and 8, Ukraine and Argentina. 11, Brazil. And as we come to the bottom of the list here, Mexico, corn. And we'll swing right into this, reading between the lines on the truth in the news. Russia and Ukraine, they did agree on a safe corridor for exports. Agreed. But what they didn't tell you is how many underwater mines were set and how very, very tiny that channel is for vessels to get out. And you just saw Lloyd's of London, 50 million per cargo. And the USDA still has 24 million tons of exportable grains coming out of the Ukraine for the next 2 months. So let's do a little simple math on this one. 24 million tons, USDA says that's what the export totals are going to be out of Ukraine. Each vessel approximately running at 25,000 tons. 2 months normally to get the rest of exports out of there with what would be harvested during the summer. So we're looking at 960 vessels that need to run through the minefields, insured at $50 million each over the next 2 months. 960 of those But I don't see the numbers really adding up, and I don't see that many smaller vessels that could even get the insurance to run those routes. So, you know, the USDA numbers, I'm going to be doing a video on this next, aren't seeming to add up. But if you remember, USDA is there to stabilize markets, not give the true totals. It gives you a gauge of what could be the true totals. But their market state, or their mission statement, excuse me, is to stabilize markets. 960 routes need to be run through there. That means 16 per day need to leave out of the ports. I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you think that's possible or not? It's a question to be answered because I don't have the answer. Perhaps there will be a miracle, and it could. Never say never. And then, you know, on top of the absurd insurance for sea delivery, let's go over to the U.S. here. This is strictly U.S. based. Rail bills, river shipping, and truck delivery, fuel surcharges swelling to an all-time high, meaning delivery cost higher, which means that gets passed on to you. Thank you. So looking at the throughput here, this chart above is quite interesting. U.S. totals of what is used at harvest versus what's left over and then goes into the silos, and they call it the carryover stocks. It's production minus exports minus domestic usage, and what you're left with, then you get a number. So you look down the chart and then you see anything that's over 100% already had massive storage from the prior years. So Kentucky, Missouri, Nebraska, but the rest are never at topping up. I encourage you to do a little more research on that. I left the link below in the description box. Now, since all these different types of fuels and energies that we use to keep our society going, I dug this one out from 1896. This is a machine supposedly on a Tesla design pulling directly from the ether to electrify that coil and create the power that you see in front of you. Directly from the circuit of the earth, between the ground and the upper ionosphere, there is a charge that exists, driven by the magnetic field of the planet, which in turn was driven by the sun's magnetic field. On site, for free. I mean, minus the construction cost of the machine, of course. But after that point, there are no more bills, there are no more meters. I wonder why that hasn't happened. Rhetorical question, I guess. But for right now, we're going to dig out Dead Dinosaurs BP Energy Outlook 2022 edition. And if we look at the solutions for removal of gigatons of CO2 per annum, that's every year, the WEF in that purple there wants to remove about 2.5-ish gigatons of CO2 per year. My friends, that is called terraforming. When you interfere with a planet's natural processes and you have the ability with your technology to do something and change it into a different state, that is the very definition of terraforming. And then you might want to ask, for what? It's not going to be a who. It's for a different species. What species is that, you might ask? Ancient history is probably the best, again, crystal ball for the future. Go back from the Sumerians 7,000 years prior to today, and you will find your answer across every single culture on the planet through all epochs of time. They're back. And during this transition phase, as our agriculture continues to diminish, some by act of nature, some by planning of man, but both are in play, you're going to need to have some storable foods. Keep yourself out of the chaos while you can get your gardens up and running. My Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030, the 25-year shelf life storable food emergency food supply. That link's in the description box below, along with tonight's images, stories, graphics. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Bye for now.